So I'm back at it again. Or, well, I guess not again, kind of again. This is the vehicle I have owned the longest. It's a 99 Dodge, obviously. As you can see here, it's a V6. Typical Dodge stuff. But it's a manual. Now, the whole reason this truck is being worked on is, well, a couple years ago I rebuilt the motor. Obviously, it's been apart for a couple of years, and the whole reason it got pulled apart is because one of the lifters I put in, apparently the oil passage wasn't drilled through all the way, oil galley, whatever you want to call it, and it seized up, and, well, it took out the bore that it was set in. If I remember right, it was this one right up here that went. But anyway, what's so special about this truck, aside from the fact that it's a manual, is I'm going to get some very poor connections just to show what the mileage is on this guy, which apparently is not enough, so I'm going to have to figure something else out. But anyway, I guess my story with this truck started back in 2020, where I originally found it on the marketplace. The guy wanted, I think, like $2,500 for it, and I mean, for a two-wheel drive, that's a bit much, but the mileage was worth it. The mileage, when I went to look at it, I believe was 36,000 miles. The guy, I mean, it was out of my price range, the guy and I couldn't come to a deal, so I figured, okay, oh well, whatever. And then I'm looking for another truck, and this actually popped up in my local dealership. So I go up, and I look at it, and I mean, it's a nice truck. So I mean, it was nice before the typical Nebraska rust got to it. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I ended up buying the truck with just a touch under 40,000 miles, and the last time I parked it, I believe it had 82,000. So I put about 42,000 miles on it. The motor, unfortunately, only had about 1,100 before it gave. Or, yeah, I think about 1,100. Either way, it's a low mileage truck, and I'd like to keep it. Especially because it's a manual, and I mean, I love my manuals. But anyway, the motor that is going in it is right over here. This would be a 5.9 Magnum out of yet another 99 Dodge. And what's so nice about this is it was a complete donor truck. So I took the entire engine harness, and the computer, yeah, is over here. So I have essentially everything I need. I've got a flywheel. I've got gaskets and seals. I forgot what was in this box because that was ordered last year at some point. We're just going to put it like that. I'm going to assume this was replaced back in October 2010. But, yeah. That's the old one out. I won't put the new one in until I get the motor put in. One of the issues that this truck originally had was right here off my cruise control. This vacuum line here was broke, and somebody tried to fix it with just a piece of heat shrink, and that heat shrink collapsed on itself. So I would either have cruise and AC for a while, and then I would lose AC, or I would lose my cruise, and also it would take 2 to 3 business weeks for the cruise to actually set. So I would set it at like 70. I would drop down to 60 before it finally caught up or got enough vacuum in there to get up back to 70. So what I did was because of how small this was, I took 2 smaller pieces of heat shrink on either side, heat shrinked it just to the vacuum line itself, got a piece of, I don't remember what plastic it was, but just hard plastic tubing, put it over, and then heat shrinked over the top of that. Yeah, just heat shrink. I wasn't sure if I put hot glue or not, but no, it's just heat shrink on here. So, got it thick enough so that the tube would set on it. I mean, I couldn't get it tube small enough to fit tightly, so it was just kind of loosely over them original pieces, and then the piece of heat shrink over that to seal it all up, and it worked amazing. So, kind of a little DIY vacuum line repair if you guys are trying to figure that out, or if you're having issues and wanting to fix a vacuum line but can't get the vacuum lines. So one of the things I just realized is there are a couple mouse nests still in that truck or in the cab. I didn't even think about it. I probably had okay enough connection to light stuff up because it was arcing out here. But who knows what the mice tore up in the cab? Because I didn't even think about that. So I may be chasing wire problems for quite a while. But, that being said, I'll know the engine side of the wires are still going to be good. Because those, I looked that over, are not tore up by mice as far as I can see. But I'm still going to pull those apart, put new wire conduit all over the lines, tape them up, make them all nice fancy. That way I know for sure that all these wires at least are solid up to the connections. That's one of the things just now that I absolutely love about this truck compared to my Chevy. The door shuts so easy. I know it's a typical thing for Chevys where they have the bushings wear out, which is exactly what went wrong on mine. And my dumbass replaced the locking plate or the locking mechanism on them because the key wouldn't work and the locks were so froze up after I put the new key in that they still wouldn't work. Yeah, that was starting to wear through pretty heavily on that new plate I had, which, fuck it, why not, right? Here is the price of one, just a single one for both driver and passenger side, and then the pair. And tell me, does it make sense to you? Because it doesn't to me, but I wasn't complaining. was going to replace these wipers anyway, because, I mean, the rubber's coming off, but I would say that's probably even more of a reason to replace them. From what I'm seeing, I've got a plug that goes in right about here in that weather grommet, whatever you want to call it. That'll have to come out. But I got to figure out what all that goes to. So that's the other handy thing, having that wire harness over there, because it's essentially the same, just with a couple extra cylinders on it. So we'll see what all those wires go to in there. Hopefully I can just disconnect them, hook everything back up on the inside. But there's a very strong possibility I'll be pulling apart a ton from the dash, because now that I think about it, those have all the headlight attachments and whatnot, so I will have to at least pull the face off. Actually, no, the front of the dash is pulled apart. The top of the dash does not exist, so that should be nice and easy. Actually, I might even have to pull the dash. I could probably just reach in behind it and pull it all out. But anyway, pull those plugs out. Hopefully it just pulls right out. I probably am going to need to pull I'm probably going to have to pull the wire harness for the ignition. So that should be fun. But that should also give me a chance to figure out why I've got some side-to-side play. I've got like a 1/2 inch of side-to-side play in that whole steering wheel. But pretty much, actually everything from that side's disconnected. Everything from up here, aside from maybe a ground or two, is disconnected. I still have to pull the starter wire off. I think that's all I really have otherwise. And then I should be ready to pull the last couple of bell housing bolts, pull the couple of motor mounts, throw a chain on here, and up and out. Which, yeah, that should be about all I have left to do on this. So we'll move everything over to the cab and you guys will get a view of probably my gut as I'm laying underneath trying to figure out where wires go. I'm assuming that this piece here is what's going to the outside. At least that's what it looks like to me. So unhook that. And I think all I have to do is just hook that back up, but I will double check for sure and see. This at one point had a brake controller that got hot enough that the plastic case actually burnt me. So, and then I tied all the wires up to the steering column. Yes, I know, probably a stupid idea, but oh well. Yeah, so I'm gonna just end up pulling this off, give me a little bit more kind of viewing room down in there, and then I will probably pull that connection. If that connection's all I need to pull, awesome. If not, I'll pull apart a little more and see what I need to do from there. But, which actually I probably could answer my own question by going looking at the other harness. And I probably need to replace this OBD2 port with the one out of there, unless that ties into this. Which, if that's the case, sweet. Anyway, I'm going to put you back on the tripod and we're going to get this all figured out. Okay, so I was right. Or I guess after looking I figured out I was right. But the big old harness down there, if I just unhook that plastic bit, what it looks like is it looks like that's all I need to do. Unhook that and then take the end that that white connector plugs into and pull that out. That's all it looks like I need to do up in here. What? Well, it looks like it's a 3/8. I assumed 10 because everything's a 10. Either way, a 10 will work. I'm also making this harder on myself than I need to. I've got a drill with a 1/4-inch attachment. Now, if it were anything other than electrical, I would use an impact on it, but because it's electrical, I would rather not. Well, this looks like it's going to be a bit more of a pain. Also, it looks like the mice kind of helped themselves to the clutch safety switch, which doesn't matter because it failed on me well before this, and so I just decided to tie it into itself. But the issue I'm running into at the moment is on the bottom, not wide angle, actually right there, that white plug, I'm trying to get that off because the other one doesn't have that, and it looks like it just kind of wanders off somewhere else up into the cab. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to unhook that so I can just pull out the main connector up there. Once I get that connector out, that's, I'm pretty sure, the last of everything that needs to come out for wiring wise. I should be able to just, I mean, I could have yanked the motor out earlier, but I'd like to get wiring out at the same time too. Because knowing me, I would forget and then have the new motor put in, wonder what the hell half of these wires are for, and then realize I forgot to take wires out. So yeah, that's what I'm currently working on now. That's why you guys are getting quite the view of what I can only assume is me struggling. This stuff works pretty good at cleaning up mouse piss. Because I was getting ready to lay down in there, and underneath the driver's side here, kind of towards my custom center console, the leg was covered in mouse piss, and I decided I didn't exactly want to lay in that. So The other thing I'll end up doing is I'll take everything out. I'm going to vacuum and just wash the interior. And hopefully that takes care of the scent. Otherwise, Chris Fix had this, I don't know, it was some kind of chlorine vapor deal. It was on his Del Sol after it flooded. He put that in there and it cleaned out the scent pretty good apparently. So I'll have to see what that is and use that if I can't get the scent out with the mat, or the mat cleaner, which I actually kind of like these vinyl floors because it's easy just to clean them. You don't have to worry about waiting for carpet to dry and whatnot. Oh yeah, I forgot. I don't ever put those clips back in. So these kind of just sit the same as what my Chevy did, where these won't fly off when I slam the door. The ones in the Chevy will. So they just kind of lived in the door pockets, and if I needed to roll them down, I'd pick them up and put them over. Oh, where's my knife? But the other thing is, this truck used to have bucket seats in it, or not bucket, bench seats in it, and I'm not a fan of the bench seats, and with it being a single cab, I wanted something to basically fit in the center, or make a center console, but that was also a lot bigger than most center consoles are. So I got the seats from the U-Pull-It yard in Kearney, and my biggest issue is the mounting on these Dodges is weird. So, I mean, you can already tell right here that you've got two different angles. Or heights. So up here's higher down there. And over here, turn the light this way. That one doesn't have a bolt in it because it didn't have the hardware for it. But those two are different heights. And then the back two, if I can get it to go, are the same. So I had three different heights I had to go for. And the seats that are currently in my Chevy were the style I wanted to put in here, until I realized that I was going to have to weld a bunch of brackets together. And my welds, they hold, just they don't hold under any sort of load. So I can join metal together, but you're probably better off standing in front of the vehicle during a wreck, because you'd probably have a better chance at living. Otherwise, you'll get thrown through the windshield while still attached to the seat. At least in my Chevy. This one, the seatbelt would keep you in the vehicle. My Chevy, though, I put bolts in it through the floor, drilled out some extra holes, and then I put a steel plate in between the body and the, I guess, nut and washer. But speaking of the Chevy, I dropped, I don't know if I said this or not, but I dropped compression on cylinder 2. So the motor's shot. Yes, I could rebuild it because it's a 350, and I mean, it'd probably run another 200,000 miles because Chevys are pretty good. But ever since I got that black RV, it needs a transmission. I know the transmission in the tan RV works, so we're going to put the transmission out of the tan RV into the black RV, and I just so happen to have a 454 that no longer has a home. I have a 3/4 ton Chevy that needs a motor. The flywheel, so what's surprising, not about the Chevy, but about the Dodge, but the Chevy, the flywheel off the 350 will work on the 454. The flywheel off the 6-cylinder will work on the 360. I got the clutch from O'Reilly's back. Actually, I actually haven't said the story about this. So, while I'm pulling the wiring out, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my Chevy, or my Dodge. So after I bought it from the local dealership, about 2 weeks after I bought it, the clutch went. It actually caught fire and melted the engine crank position sensor. And yeah, so I'm lucky I didn't burn my truck down that I just bought. Two, be damn sure when you're buying a vehicle that it doesn't say as is sale, because I like this truck so much that I didn't really look too closely at it, other than the fact that the frame had not even a spot of surface rust when I first got it. Like, it still had factory paint everywhere. I don't know if it had been undercoated or not. Obviously, I got some surface rust showing now. But, anyway. Clutch went, took out the engine crank position sensor, had my buddy tow it back to his place, threw the sensor in it, fired right up. I went to go move, and nothing. Like, couldn't drive, because, I mean, the clutch was gone. So, what... Man, it's actually kind of in there kind of tight. What we ended up doing was we pulled the transmission, since it was pretty blatantly obvious that the clutch was bad. Also, when we towed it out there, we didn't pay attention to where we strapped down, so the rear brake line got crushed. So I got new rear brake lines. The pictures that are, again, here, 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 and here. And maybe a couple extra points because I don't know how many I have. That's what the truck looked like when I originally got it. And those rims on there just so happened to be Ford rims that were, I think, about a 1/4 inch too small. And they shoved it on there and made it work. So all 20 lug studs were bent in. So I got to replace all 20 lug studs, the clutch, the brake line. I went and found the rims that are on it now at the U-Pull-It yard in Kearney again. What else? I think that's about all we did, was the clutch. Didn't resurface the flywheel. I probably should have, because I ended up having to pull the transmission apart about a year later to get the flywheel resurfaced, because it tore the clutch up pretty bad. I should also mention that this had been either near or underwater at some point, because there was a pretty well crispy frog on the inside of the bell housing. That just will not come out. So, all in all, the transmission came out 2 weeks after, so I could put the clutch in. It came out about a year later, so I could resurface the flywheel, put that in, put a new clutch in. And before you say anything, no, it's not the way I drive. The clutch was scored pretty badly because it had worn down to the where the friction material attaches to the clutch, or the friction. Basically, it was steel on steel, like a brake rotor. But we just took an angle grinder, kind of with a buffing pad, buffed it out a little bit, didn't tear out too much. And then I took it up to Starlight, I believe is what the name of the company is, in Grand Island. Had them resurface the flywheel. I think at the time it was like, no, it wasn't 25. It was like $75 for them to resurface it. Threw that in, new clutch in, never had an issue with it ever since. And then when I rebuilt the motor, I didn't have the full front end pulled apart like what I do now, so I pulled the transmission back. So technically I pulled it out, but it never came out from underneath the vehicle. And that ended up being kind of a mistake, because my jack that I was using to support the tail housing of it decided it no longer wanted to have a seal. And so it pinned my arm in between the cross member and the tail shaft. Or tail shaft, right in front of the tail shaft, at the main body of the transmission. So I was stuck under the truck, pinned, at night, my phone out of reach. So that was fun. I think I was under there for, I don't know, 25, 30 minutes before I was finally able to get it off of me. And before people say, oh, it's an aluminum transmission, it should have been light, my shoulder was pinned, I don't know how well you can see it, but my arm was back like this, and I couldn't turn without torquing it really badly. So what I ended up doing was I ended up taking my feet, somehow managing to press up against the transmission, and lifted it off myself that way. But yeah, ever since then, when I did my transmission in my Chevy, I had a set of 2 ratchet straps underneath there and like 3 different jacks holding that up. One, it's a cast iron transmission, so it was like 7 times heavier than what this is. Not really, but you get what I mean. Yeah, so I don't take any chances with that anymore. And unfortunately on the project now at hand, I may have to pull this ABS module, which I really did not want to have to do, but it's looking like that because I've got a ton of different things hanging up everywhere. Which I probably need to go in the cab and actually just push that connector out now that I think about it as I smash my shin. What I'm looking at under here is, finagle you guys back here, ow! My head tends to stop things for me. Right back there, that blue and white plug. And actually, I should thank you, because now I can see exactly what I was missing. This little clip where I'm pointing to, you can't see it. But since I'm also in here, I'm thinking about it. This is what I mean. There's some side-to-side play in that steering wheel. And I'm assuming that it is just my failure to tighten something up underneath there. But I don't think I ever had the steering column drop for anything, so I can't be too sure. But we'll bring you over here so you can watch me struggle. Because I struggle a lot. No idea if I've said that before or yet. But yeah. Anyway, now it's about time I crawl underneath the truck. Because right here, kind of that little bunch of little, it's hard to see, wires I'm wiggling with my finger there. There's a bunch of connectors that go beneath the truck. So I'm going to yank those out and see what connectors those go to. Hopefully I've got the correct connectors on there. I don't know what all's different between an automatic actually, you know what? I bet those are probably for the O2 sensors. Clip that. And he should just, yank right out of there. More body pins. Which looks like I can just clip that there. That frees that up. That looks like that's all out. Just disconnect these guys here. Oh, geez. They're actually in there pretty good. Oh, man, I really got to press down on that. Try not to. Oh, man. Try not to knock the camera around. I'm not crazy. I gotta press down on these, right? Right. Hold on. There two of them? No, just the one. There's definitely squeeze. Okay. That's my head. There's that. Man, they weren't playing around on that. Holy crap. Oh, no, I don't. Wait, no, I do, because there's no other way to tie him down. Damn it. Oh, that would be why. That one actually has a rock stuck right where that tab needs to lift up. Yep, the rock was stopping me.